history that doesn't suck. I'm your professor, Greg Jackson, and it is time for an epilogue, time to digest some of the stories we've enjoyed in the last few episodes. I'm joined by my friends, Kelsi Dines.
Hey, y'all.
And Zach Weaver.
Glad to be back, Greg.
And so glad to have you both back. So we kind of inadvertently did the volume of Theodore Roosevelt. Thought that was going to be a few episodes less, but had a great time with it. Ready to digest it, and we'll continue on with the progressive era. However, of course, before we say anything more about Teddy, let's go ahead and get to what I think is some people's favorite part, where we acknowledge anything that slipped through our fingers like sand.
It's certainly my mom's favorite part.
It's true. And let's say hello to Zach's mom.
Hi, Zach's mom.
Is that how you refer to her? Like,
yeah,
you guys hang out? You're like,
even when I give her a hug, I'm like, hello,
hi, Zach's mom.
My mother, Zach's mother.
I think it's great that you all embrace the third person so strongly in the Weaver clan.
Yep.
That's great. And hey, we jumped into recording the last epilogue so quickly. We did forget. We were remiss. We did not say hello to your mom. So an absolute deep and full-on apology and salutation to Zach's mom.
I'm happy to say hello to my mom. I know what will make up for us missing last time is jumping into this specific correction because she found it as funny, I think, as we all did, right?
Oh, good.
Kelsi, did you find this one funny?
I found it hilarious.
Okay. So, with credit to, I'm going to stick with 25% of the state of Pennsylvania.
It's probably a very conservative number.
Fine. With
I'm
credit
talking
to 26.
mid-90s, Greg.
So many emails and messages.
Okay, so apparently it isn't the reading railroad, it's the reading railroad. And I was lied to. Thank you, I know. I was lied to by everyone who ever played Monopoly with me as a child in the 80s and 90s.
We got emails, we got
Facebook messages.
We got letters, we got smoke signals. Yeah, I learned, it was just dots and dashes for, it's pronounced reading, not reading.
I feel like there might have been just a few who are like, oh, this is my moment. I've been waiting for this. Like, my time to shine.
They probably deal with people saying it wrong so much that they're like, it's coming up. Yep. It's going to be said wrong.
I'm sure.
I didn't know.
Yeah. And as you both know, my Jackson grandparents, born and raised in Pennsylvania. How did I grow up playing Monopoly with my dad? And apparently he didn't know, or I don't know what to make of it. I really feel like there was some, something failed to get passed down on the Pennsylvania side of the family there.
That's the gap in your knowledge.
Yes.
With all love and all respect and everything to everyone in Pennsylvania who wrote in this correction, it does read like reading. It is spelled reading.
But if there's
that's also pronounced read.
Oh, it's true, right?
It is.
Because English is
past participle
insane.
versus present. Oh, yeah.
Blame not us, but blame the English language. The fault, dear Brutus, is not in our stars, but in the English language.
Indeed.
Exactly.
Indeed, sir. Well played. And I also want to know, as is always the case, whenever one of these creep up, you all are so kind with your emails, and I do appreciate that. They're very 100%. Complimentary and very understanding.
It always started with, you guys do such a great job, just this one little thing.
I'll tell you, the task of trying to pronounce correctly the cities, the rivers, the everything of this incredibly vast, diverse nation and all the linguistic influences and places that haven't been. Yeah, it's... But we do really have a almost, I'm going to say, an almost bulletproof system at this point in place.
Yeah.
More time is spent checking pronunciation than I ever care to acknowledge to myself, because I think I'd cry, in the corner if I realized how much of my life was spent doing that. But
I think that's one of the things that people appreciate, is that you do put in the effort to make sure that you pronounce these things correctly. And I can't tell you, I think I've called like 7 different police stations to make sure that I have gotten the correct pronunciation of a town name. so that I can tell him what it
911, what's your emergency? What is the name of your town?
Greg is recording.
is. Right now.
Bucyrus. Okay.
Thank you.
Could you spell that phonetically for me? This is an emergencies only line,
I
ma'am.
only call the non-emergency line.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Well, anyhow, that's acknowledged. And we'll fix that one. Okay. We'll fix it.
We'll go back and fix it.
That's one.
Yeah. Okay. I get it. All right. So that said, that was fun. Teddy.
The Rough Rider.
We're just going to look. I feel like
moose.
we did such a very
The damned
thorough,
cowboy.
deep dive on the square deal. We had a solid episode on foreign policy. Rather than take this in a kind of systematic way, we're just going to get into the fun things that maybe didn't get into these episodes and take it from there.
Here's where I would start with Teddy. I would start with Teddy where we started with Teddy.
Well, that sounds like a
is,
pretty good place to start.
You know, I'm known for my thoughts, Craig, and I'm paid for my thoughts. And
wow. Carry on.
With
his confidence gone up since the intern days.
Yeah, that's your fault.
After we like to call it in the Weaver household the 2021 Simpsons debacle. After that happened, I said I'll come out guns blazing every time in these epilogues.
Right.
No, with Teddy, we didn't do a biography on Benjamin Harrison before his episode. In part because him and a lot of other presidents, they don't have quite the stories that TR does in his repertoire there.
Yeah, that's putting it mildly.
Putting it mildly. But also, you have to understand who TR is as a person to understand him as a president, because who he is as a person actually influences who he is as a president, if that makes sense.
And it seems like in a lot more of a way than other presidents. I mean, I'm sure that that's the case for a lot of people, but it just seems so pronounced
blatant
with him.
With TR. This is something that in your edits of the Strenuous Life episode, you really focused on, and I think it's a phenomenal point, is that he doesn't like bullies as a kid, and so he doesn't like bullies growing up. It's not like my policy is anti-civil service reform or pro-civil service reform because this is an important policy. No, I don't like bullies. And as Teddy says in one of his speeches, as with nations, so with people.
Yep.
That the nation needs to be run on a basis of, well, dishonesty is wrong if I tell you a lie, so why should we allow corporations or other countries or anyone to act dishonestly? So,
yeah.
I mean, should we just hit stop? Zach, I think you just hit it on the head, man. That really does sum up TR. And
yeah.
I think that's what sets him apart so much. Not to besmirch,
Benjamin
Harrison.
Other presidents.
I was trying to remember which one did you reference?
William Henry Harrison.
But and not that they didn't bring their life experiences or what have you, but Teddy, he only becomes president initially, as we know, because Will McKinley's assassinated. He is not the type of person that wins with the party. We know that he would piss off the party bosses.
Mark Hanna calls him that damned cowboy.
Exactly. Yeah. Right. So this is a guy who is, I don't mean this in a cynical way, because I really try to not be cynical, but he's frankly too honest to get into some spaces in life. And if it weren't for that occurrence of...
certainly he's too honest for Gilded Age politics.
Yes.
Which is notorious.
And I don't mean that as like a knock on Teddy. I mean that as a virtue, that you wouldn't expect someone who is that honest to be able to, as you're pointing out, right, to be able to succeed in Gilded Age politics.
And it's difficult to imagine, in the same, historians don't do well with counterfactuals, but it is difficult to imagine an America without TR. In the same way, it's difficult to imagine an America without a Lincoln or a Frederick Douglass or George Washington,
or Benjamin Harrison.
Or William Henry Harrison. We kind of do have an America without William Henry Harrison.
Oh, Wow.
Tippecanoe and Tyler too.
There's
Poor William.
There's
Poor
a National
William.
Park Service employee assigned at something to do with like his former house right now. It's going,
There's a
hey,
big-
Probably
hey,
like his
that was a big
birthplace.
month.
Big WHH fan out there.
Just makes me think of that Parks and Rec episode. There's that one where they're trying to find historical artifacts or something that links William Henry Harrison to this part that they want to make a national park or something.
Yep.
And they're just grasping at all the straws.
He's seeing everything. I'm glad we got Parks and Rec in there.
Me too.
Happy to.
But get it back on Teddy. You're right. He doesn't like bullies. He hates bullies. The way that he overcomes his own physical condition, right? He's scrawny. He's asthmatic. And he turns himself into this jacked boxer by the time he gets to Harvard. The dude, as you know I appreciate, climbs the freaking Matterhorn. That is an incredible feat for anyone. The fact that he comes from being someone who is not physically gifted.
It's
He's
like he willed
disadvantaged.
that into existence
Pretty
for
much.
himself.
No, I'll be honest. One thought I had a few times. I'm glad this worked out for Teddy. I would be mildly afraid that some might listen to this and be like, oh, right, so I can just will my way out of some of my medical condition. I don't know that works. I don't know that you should always take your health advice from
Theodore Roosevelt.
Theodore Roosevelt. I mean, to some degree, sure, perhaps. Just we'll just avoid getting into this space.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, I was just absolutely impressed with him, and that sort of I will do attitude. It follows him into politics. And I mean, his personal life, geez, having his mother and his wife die.
I couldn't listen to that part.
Mm.
I had to like stop part of the way through and like go and actually watch something happy
Yeah.
and then come back and finish listening because I was like, nope, I can't.
Yeah. A listener let me know that was that it was a playful message saying thanks for making me almost crash as I tried to drive through my tears.
Yeah. Thanks for that.
Yeah.
If that was a book that we had written and had like tried to submit to a publisher, I think they would have rejected it
For being too obvious.
for being too obvious.
Right.
Because
Like, that can't happen.
his mother and wife die on the day that
Valentine's
his
Day.
wife gives birth. On Valentine's Day, which is the 4th anniversary of
say,
when
wasn't
they
it
got
also
engaged.
Yeah.
And he gets the news while everyone's cheering for him because he's such a great guy. Like,
He's
It does
storybook, man.
seem
That would have
totally
been
made
rejected.
up.
Teddy Roosevelt is he's storybook. He
Yeah.
really is. I mean, I don't say that in a romanticizing sort of way as though he doesn't have his flaws and his imperfections like everyone does. But the life that this man
lives.
yes.
He is larger
I'm
than
asthmatic.
life.
I'll overcome it. I'm suffering with grief. I will go to the Badlands and reinvent myself and go from elite New Yorker
To rugged
to-
cowboy.
yeah.
To damned cowboy.
Yeah, and
He's
there
just
we have
so-
a repeat of the boxer that we met
Mhm.
in
Yeah.
Harvard, right? These were mini episodes that didn't make it into the main feed, but we covered his. You go ahead, Zach. And
His boxing episode.
yeah,
There's this story with his future wife watching him box at Harvard and TD then turning into Teddy.
yeah.
Starting to become Teddy. If you have the opportunity, dear listener, to look up the picture of him in the Harvard Boxing Club, he is a handsome young man. Those TR mutton chops,
he's pulling them off.
they're
Yeah.
a sight to
You know what?
behold.
In
Zach's.
Zach's, totally unbiased opinion.
In my unbiased opinion, TR is a very handsome historical figure, second only to William Jennings Bryan.
Oh, jeez.
There
Kelsi,
he
check
is.
your timer.
No, the dude looks like he's an underwear model. With I know the photo
100%.
you're talking
Oh,
about.
100%.
He's sitting there, shirt off, his hands kind of crossed.
He's got this cool look.
Oh, he's
on
got
his
the
face.
smolder,
Like
man.
he's too cool
Zoolander
for this
all the
picture.
way. He's doing blue steel.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah,
And,
and
he's
he's not even trying.
And
That's
that's
the
when
thing.
the camera exploded.
And you would think that this young asthmatic boy has turned himself into a good boxer by that picture. And then he gets into the ring. He gets cracked across the face. The other guy who's boxing is just punching the heck out of him. And there's this one part where right after the round ends, his opponent punches TR. And the crowd starts to boo his opponent. And Teddy, black eye, blood just streaming down, raises his hand to the crowd and is like, no, so he didn't know the round was over yet. Don't boo him. It's all right. It's fine. And then goes back to his corner.
And again, this is Teddy's sense of fair play, right? Like,
yeah, he's not going to let somebody take crap
exactly
for something that wasn't their fault.
Even as
if the
this is the guy who just cracked him in the face.
Who's beating the hell out of him.
Yes.
That's what's supposed to happen.
And, because it is what's supposed to happen. So, and again, we're seeing the pain that this man can withstand, right? I mean, that's the sort of guy who reinvents his body, right? Who it's like, yeah, I have asthma. No, well, Matterhorn anyway. And goes out to the Badlands, and in that space, he's in a bar, and a drunken bully comes up, calls him Four Eyes, tells Teddy he is going to buy him a drink. The dude pulls his revolvers on Roosevelt. I mean, I try to put myself in his situation. Imagine you're out by yourself, friends, doesn't matter. There you are, you're at Chili's, whatever. Right? You're just sitting there, beer in front of you, what have you. Someone walks up to you, pulls a gun out and says, you're going to buy me a drink while insulting you. I'd probably buy the drink.
How many?
And there's Teddy, coolly says, well, if I got to, I got to. Boom! Cracks him in the face. The dude's guns go off as he's falling. I mean, yeah, this is not the safest play either, right? Like, but yeah, he just totally knocks out his bully.
If someone called me Four Eyes, I'd walk away scared.
So, like, I think that thus far, what we've kind of turned into is establishing Teddy digs deeper than 99.9% of the world, and he doesn't tolerate a bully. So let's go ahead and take a break there, then we'll come back and build on those fine points. And we're back to Teddy, the I don't suffer bullies president.
The Rough Rider.
The Rough Rider. You know, his whole hating of bullies thing, I think that really comes out in his attitude with corporations.
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
As we talk and think about, again, nuance, right? Getting into his actual words, that is, for me, what I see in his speeches. And I feel like that came out in the episodes from the quotes that we have from Roosevelt, his annual message to Congress, that sort of thing. And even his whole framing, right, of his 3 C's, as historians will later put it. He didn't come up with that terminology. But again, we've got the corporate regulation, consumer protection, his conservationism. But as he puts it, the square deal. And he doesn't invent that phrase. We'll go ahead and acknowledge that again. But he definitely, it becomes the view
of Teddy.
Yeah.
He treats people squarely. He treats them fairly.
And that's his big thing, right? It's no bullies. He has things to say about the corporate world. He has things to say about corrupt union leaders as well. He does not want to see a bully anywhere.
Which I think is actually one of the things that I like about him. He doesn't let people really influence that. It doesn't matter if they're these super rich people that are like, I will donate lots of money to you if you don't do this, right? He doesn't care.
He gets donations from Standard Oil. He gets donations from J. Pierpont Morgan. And, you know, part of it is that he's the Republican candidate. Republicans at this point have kind of turned to the big business as we come out of these Gilded Age years where, frankly, the parties just aren't terribly different, right? Up until, I'd say, that whole minting issue, that's where things really kind of started to
really diverge.
Yeah, and have a difference. I don't think this was Mark Hanna. I'm pretty sure it was a different Republican, but the comment was made after they donated hundreds of thousands. And again, this is hundreds of thousands in the early 20th century, right?
Yeah.
Hundreds of thousands to his presidential campaign. The dude starts taking shots at the trusts, right? He's the trust buster. Now, he's actually not the biggest trust buster president, but he's the one who initiates it. He inaugurates it.
Yeah.
And dang, it's going to eat at me. But you can Google this. You can look it up if you really want to know who said it. But one of them said, roughly, if not spot on quote, "We bought the son of a bitch, and he refused to stay bought." Because in their minds, that's what they did.
Yeah.
We donated. We all understand. No one's saying it, but the understanding.
This is the status quo.
Yeah, you're going to support us because we support you. And he gets in the office like,
Nah.
Thanks for the money. I don't know, you crap. Northern Securities.
Sounds good, but no.
See you in court. Yeah. Can we shift gears to conservationism a bit?
Yes.
Okay,
Absolutely.
So the cold open of episode 114, it is such a simple story. And it's not terribly action-packed, and yet it's one of my favorite TR moments because it's such it's an insight into him.
Yes.
Again.
Into how he sees the world.
Right.
Yeah.
So Pelican Island in Florida, people hunt there. And hunting's going through a major reformation itself in this era. As species are being, frankly, hunted to death,
Extinction.
I'm not an expert on the history of hunting, so I won't go too deep into this. But both externally and internally within the hunting community, there's kind of this like, oh, we actually need to think about this. And that's part of where we end up with some of the laws that are actually supported by hunters, where they have to go, buy
tags,
stamps. It goes towards conservation because they realize like, oh, we're not going to.
We should probably not hunt all of the animals out of existence.
But we're definitely not there.
The buffalo.
Oh, the image. I mean, this is where I do wish somehow we could put photos in a podcast. It obviously doesn't work, but it's a haunting image from the 1880s of this just massive pyramid
of buffalo.
Of buffalo skulls. Terrifying, frankly. Nothing better illustrates, right? That is a photo that's worth far more than 1,000 words.
Yeah.
But all that said, Pelican Island, again, Teddy, here you've got the elite New Yorker, and hey, Central Park, people go watch birds. I'm not saying that you can't be that and like birds, but man, like who is this guy, right? Like, yeah, I like to write history books in my downtime.
Also, I love birds.
To watch birds when I'm not being chased by a big bear.
Listeners out there who love birds, you will be impressed to know that a lot of the conservation episode, the bird sounds that are in there, they are in the script not as
bird sound,
but Townsend solitaire or the specific type of bird, because Teddy knows what they are.
So, and this actually, it does kind of get even to the efforts we make on pronunciation. We were able to find an excellent recording of the brown pelican.
Yes.
And we needed to purchase that. So we specifically purchased that sound and brought it in. We could not find, alas,
the Townsend solitaire.
No, I'm sure it's out there somewhere, but in a perfect world, if we had like 3 months, I'm sure we'd have gotten that. But we couldn't track one of those down, but we did seek out and
the
find
brown pelican.
Well, we tried on both. We were just able to succeed with the brown pelican. And we found a kind of more generic sound that was pretty darn close.
Close to the Townsend solitaire. You know who would listen and be able to know what the difference is?
Teddy.
Yeah.
Theodore Roosevelt Jr.
Okay, well, all of that said, I just appreciate you brought the junior in there. Right, his response, it shows the way that he doesn't look for permission to do things.
I loved that.
In the Constitution, right? He looks for prohibitions.
He's like,
that's his concern.
Is there a law against this? No?
Can I do this? Well,
perfect. Then I'm doing it.
There's nothing that says you can't.
And
excellent.
Sounds like permission to me.
My favorite story in that episode is, even if there is a law against it, the law doesn't go into effect for 10 days.
Oh my gosh.
Oh,
right.
yeah.
So
that was
just
amazing.
Gonna do it now for the next 10 days and work night and day and have my staff work night and day, so that when you make the law, when I sign the law, it practically is ineffectual. The Midnight Forest story.
Yep.
Man.
That was with an agricultural bill.
Yeah, it was an agricultural.
Yeah. No, that was
Teddy.
hilarious. Well, I like a lot of this bill. I don't like that part of the bill. Looks like I have 10 days per the Constitution. I guess we'll burn the midnight oil.
You can't make
everyone make another pot of coffee. Here we go.
You can't make any new forests in these states. Well, I'm going to make some new forests in those states before this takes effect.
Well, and I do think that this is an interesting thing to bring up when we think about some of these really impactful big presidents. In my mind, there's a distinction in life between, to not sound too much like like I'm giving a TED talk now, but like there are managers and there are leaders. Managers, in my mind, they keep the machine moving, right? They understand what the rules are, what their role is. And a leader will have an actual vision and take things in a certain direction. Wartime presidents, we see more of that, partly because of the war brings urgency that just isn't there otherwise.
They have to.
Yeah, there's no choice. So, I mean, Lincoln, FDR. Teddy is one of those, frankly, rarer presidents that brings that sort of urgency that I have ideas and I'm going to pursue them outside of a war situation. That's just what I see playing out here. I mean, he is less constitutional in his approach.
Much less constitutional.
I mean, I may be putting that mildly.
That's generous.
Okay, the quote.
Mark Twain.
Oh, okay, the Mark Twain quote. That wasn't even the one I was going for, but that was great, right? Yeah.
What's your favorite TR doesn't care about the Constitution quote?
Well,
you share yours.
That feels like
I'll
strong
show you mine.
language, but I don't know if I'll say he doesn't care.
Plays fast and loose.
He does. The 1902 coal strike, right, where he's being confronted by a congressman who is worried about property rights with the coal strike in Pennsylvania. And he's saying, well, what about the Constitution? And Teddy's response, the Constitution was written for the people, not the people for the Constitution. That's, those are some strong words. It tells you where he stands. And for me, I found myself kind of contrasting that in my head with the far more legal mind of the lawyer turned president, Abraham Lincoln, right, where you see him very methodically, carefully, like with the 13th Amendment. He's not willing to leave something at an executive order. He's always thinking about, okay, this can be undone if it isn't done in this way. He says bad laws need to be followed to expose that they're bad laws. For me, it was interesting to think about the two very strong but very different presidents.
You did refer to Lincoln as the lawyer who became a president. I will say Teddy Roosevelt did go to law school.
And it was like,
and it was bored.
Right. He's like, well, I could do this, or I could write a book about the War of 1812.
I'm bored here. I don't want to learn about rules all day when I could go climb the Matterhorn.
And that right there, again, kind of sums up that. Yeah. That speaks to Teddy. I think that encapsulates kind of some key aspects of him as president. We do still need to talk about those events abroad, though.
Yes.
So let's go ahead and take a quick break, and then we can come back and talk Panama and Great White Fleet and all sorts of fun things. And welcome back. So, foreign policy time. TR and that big stick, that is the Navy.
I never realized that that's what he was talking about when he said big stick.
I mean, effectively.
Yeah.
Because that's the world that we're talking about.
No.
No offense to those in the Army. This is the early...
Let's not open that can of worms.
In come the sharks and jets here. But no, it's the early 1900s, and the United States is, part of the isolationism that exists in that era is because, Atlantic, Pacific Oceans.
A little isolated?
A little isolated, yeah.
It's kind of easy to be isolationist when you are isolated.
We have two major neighbors, right? Canada, Mexico. And this era, when you think about the massive empires and the militarism that just has the world wrapped up in it, those massive empires are, well, frankly, it's Europe, then Japan. Yeah. And increasingly so the United States, which is the world's largest exporter of goods. We, previous to this volume, talked about overseas expansion, which was basically we're going to jack colonies from Spain. And of course, Teddy was a part of that. So the Spanish-American War, and frankly, it rolls right into explaining his thoughts on Latin America, that same idea that we saw in the Philippines with quote-unquote benevolent assimilation, the idea that the United States can do empire abroad, unlike the evil Europeans who still have monarchies.
America is so star-spangled awesome that we can run an empire.
Right.
And we're going to be so much better at it.
Than the old world.
And when we do it, we will elevate people with ideas of liberty.
People down like the...
Exactly.
Yeah.
And of course, that theory does not translate in practice. So that's also where, it connects to the Monroe Doctrine. As discussed in the episode, we got the Roosevelt Corollary, where he basically says, you know what, Monroe Doctrine, we can make that stronger.
We can put steroids in there.
That's right.
Let's take that a step further.
We can now interfere in domestic issues only if there's a problem. But of course, the issue is who gets to decide if there's a problem. Well,
there's always a problem somewhere.
So that's where we get to Panama as the point. Well, you have two narratives. Colombia is looking at this saying, we have some separatists. And then you've got people in Panama who are saying, we want to break away, specifically because we want a canal. Well, that doesn't exactly make the United States, which wants a canal, a neutral party. And it's
they definitely have a vested interest
there. A little bit. So, reading through Teddy's thoughts, it's clear that he genuinely believed in the morality of what he was doing, but nonetheless, that's not bulletproof. Anyhow, the Panama Canal, carving a pathway between the two continents, not to dismiss any of the issues in terms of how the United States comes to have that power to build it, but it's one of the wonders of the world.
It's a huge undertaking.
It's a massive undertaking. So much life is lost in building this thing. You don't want to point out, Zach, that was mostly under the French? I felt like you jumped on this, right? About 20,000 of the 25,000. Not to downplay another, 5,000 lives, but
it just so happens when the French were in charge.
It felt like a moment for you. We're moving on. Having this thing be entirely self-sustaining, where the water being held within the dams, and as things flow, that is generating the power. All these electric engines that are, it's the freaking early 1900s, and you've got 1,500 small electric motors.
Stuff like that always just boggles my mind, because I sit there and I think, oh yeah, that's not that big of a deal. But I think about it now, right? But not having access to all the major construction tools and factories making, like, with tiny robot arms that make all these intricate little parts, right? Like, it's just amazing to me the things that people are able to accomplish. They're like, that's what we want. We're going to do it.
It's fun to me to do an American history podcast, because for whatever it is, luck or whatever you want to call it, that the United States becomes a country, and American history is right around this explosion through all of human history, The United States is kind of at an inflection point in terms of technology that we, in like the early days of the podcast, you're talking about the Erie Canal and like water wheels. And here we are 100 some odd episodes later, and we're talking about carving a path through a continent for gigantic metal ships to go through.
Yeah.
It boggles the mind.
And the technology behind it. It blows me away when I take in the idea of 300 to 750 ton steel doors, the gates. That's actually, I think, a more specific number than I gave in the episode. And they've made them buoyant.
Yeah.
That is insane. It's amazing. Anyhow, I hope it wasn't lost as the Panama Canal took, I think rightfully so, such a center stage in the foreign policy episode, that this is really an era of peaked militarism, that the empires of the world are a little bit like, the apocryphal literary quote attributed to Alexander the Great, that he wept for there were no more worlds to conquer. That's kind of what you've got with the world empires, and they're about to turn on each other. Mm-hmm. World War I, it's not just because Franz Ferdinand
Is assassinated.
is assassinated.
What?
I know.
That's not the only thing that sparked this major war.
I thought
know.
everyone
I'm just
was
blowing your
chill.
minds right now. Everything was great.
Listen to this. Kel Surprise.
That was
Terrible.
that. No. It was that was good. It was real good.
No, it was
No,
bad.
it was
You
actually
rolled your
fine.
eyes.
It was fine. I did not roll my eyes. I don't have that much control over the left eye. So that's
Okay, my bad. He rolled his eye.
so. So point being, in terms of thinking about Teddy, again with the quote unquote big stick, he's showing the world, hey, back off, don't mess with the United States. Everybody's kind of flexing right now. Things are very tense with Japan. And really, it's a brilliant play in terms of his diplomacy. But at the same time, it's very much a military flex. And it makes sense in this era where there is the HMS Dreadnought has just been invented.
Mm-hmm.
Other nations are scrambling to match Britain's massive battleship.
People are tense.
Yes.
Right now.
Yeah.
Things are tense.
This is also the same time. The Great White Fleet takes off at the end of 1907. This is the same year that Russia has jumped in on the Entente, right? The Entente Cordiale. We'll say it that way for you, Kelsi. Okay?
Great.
L'Entente Cordiale between Britain and France. So we have the sides that are going to turn into World War I very much in motion. All right, fine. I'm done with foreign policy. What are those other things you two want to talk about?
Just that we apologize to anybody that was eating during that consumer regulation episode.
Hey, I gave so much warning on that one. There were lots of heads up was given. And a credit.
Airship
credit.
did an amazing job with those sound effects.
That's Molly. Well,
she
just
did
want to shout
so
her
good.
out. Yeah, phenomenal job. Molly always does a phenomenal.
She always does so good, but
yes,
that just was.
Oh yeah,
that was a fun one to research.
Yeah,
it's rare that you find an article entitled "The Pig and the Privy" when you're researching for HTDS episodes. So when you do, it's like a golden nugget.
You gotta use it.
And
you gotta use it.
Poor Upton Sinclair. I don't know if there's ever been someone who's been more charged about a cause and more effectively mobilized people to do something that isn't what
he wanted.
What he actually wanted.
Remember when we were talking about the people voting, the delegates voting for James Garfield
and how he
at
didn't
the Republican
want it?
convention,
Yes,
and how he didn't want it, and he's like, no, and they're like, no, sorry, you have to sit down. We're gonna keep voting, and everyone's just like 21 for Garfield, and they just keep voting for him. That's proverbially Upton Sinclair. Okay, so this book is about food regulations. No. It's about the working class. Okay, sit down, Upton. This book is about food regulations.
Well, and there's definitely some of that. It's not like it was lost, right?
Oh, yeah.
And that's where Teddy, and again, perhaps another point to highlight how he is no William Jennings Bryan. William Jennings Bryan isn't as far out as that, right? But where he's like, okay, this book cast some serious shade, but it's written by a socialist, so we're definitely going to do our own independent research. And of course, the takeaway is, well,
it's kind of gross.
Let's regulate the food industry. Upton, we thank you for that point, and we're done. We're done here.
Eugene Debs, you and Upton can go sit down.
You
guys go.
Thank you for this contribution.
Sit in the corner. We're making the FDA. There we are. Okay. Hey, as we wrap up, we need to say a goodbye
to Teddy. Shirley?
No, to you, Zach.
Oh, to me.
To you.
A little bit to Teddy too, but not as much.
Oh, Teddy, we are so not done with Teddy. We're done with episodes that are uber Teddy centric.
One of the main sources on which we drew for all of the Teddy stuff is Edmund Morris's 3-volume biography set about Theodore Roosevelt. Just so you know about how rich this man's life is, this entire volume and previous volumes where we've brought Teddy up, those are the first 2 books. There's a whole nother thick book about Theodore Roosevelt. That's stuff we haven't even talked about yet.
Yeah. And of course, that it's not like we covered everything in the book.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, it was but a source.
Mm-hmm.
But don't you go dodging on me,
Zach.
Okay. Zach,
right.
after, what month did you start interning?
I technically... Go ahead.
I think
Do you remember better than
it
I?
was December of 2020 is when we officially started.
My goodness.
Yeah,
My goodness.
I walked back from the interview with Greg with the autumn leaves falling. I remember that. So it was November, December of 2020.
It was such a moment in life. The foliage.
The good old days.
Yes.
Yeah.
The good old
Back before
The
his
good old
hair
days.
turned gray.
The good
Oh
old-
yeah, because Zach's graying.
The good old
Zach,
days of 2020.
hey man,
Oh, gosh.
you're going to Harvard Law
Yes.
like a boss.
Yes, I will be
Yeah.
attending Harvard Law School starting this fall.
I mean, now why you are accepting this offer from Harvard as opposed to staying at HTDS is just,
I mean,
naturally it's mind-boggling.
Yes.
But
it's beyond me.
yeah,
I don't understand
I feel like you flipped a coin, and it was close.
I said HTDS, HLS, History That Doesn't Suck, Harvard Law School. And it came up tails. Sorry.
Hey, in all seriousness, man, so proud of you.
Thank you very much to the listeners for forgiving my consistent, persistent Simpsons references and unbridled praise of William Jennings Bryan, the greatest loser in American history.
And someone you adore.
And someone I adore.
It's I mean, you'll leave the biggest void since Josh and CL here, man. But I'll look forward to still seeing you, still hear from Josh and CL as busy as they are in their very different lives and whatnot. But go crush it, man. I know you will.
Thank you very much.
I feel we need to say goodbye to Zach's mom.
We do.
She's a bigger part of this than I.
I think so.
We would be remiss.
Zach's mom, we thank you.
Good.
Thank you, Zach's mom.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.
All right. Okay, well, with that, next time we'll be diving deeper into the progressive era, so we'll pick up there, and we'll catch you in 2 weeks. History That Doesn't Suck is created and hosted by me, Greg Jackson. Special guests, Zachary Weaver and Kelsi Dines. Production by Airship. Sound design by Molly Bach. Theme music composed by Greg Jackson. Arrangement and additional composition by Lindsey Graham of Airship. HTDS is supported by fans at patreon.com/history that doesn't suck. My gratitude to you kind souls providing funding to help us keep going. Thank you. And a special thanks to our patrons whose monthly gift puts them at producer status. Robert Asenzi, Nanette Averill, Paul Borowski, Christopher Beckett, Victoria Bennett, Boosh, Amanda and Kelsey Bragg, Henry Brunges, Thomas Budd, Will Caldwell, Beth M. Chris Jansen, Christopher Cottle, Jason Carsons, Charles and Shirley Clendenin, Matthew Corley, Charles Devier, John Frugal Dougal, Kyle Decker, Bob Drazovich, Joe Dobis, Mark Ellis, Michael and Rachel Urfolini, Paul Goringer, Lee Goldman, Brad Herman, Jennifer in Houston, Mike Healy, Noah Hoff, Melanie Jan, Dex Jones, John Keller, Kristen Kennedy, Todd Kime, Amber Clandred, Sue Lang, Art Ling, Dave Longlinay, Aaron Lapellis, Chris Mendoza, Rich Miller, Matthew Mitchell, Jeannie McCreary, Liz McNeil, Donald Moore, Jeffrey Moots, Nick Navoda, Fox Osborne, Sean Pepper, Christopher Pullman, Sean Reagan, Nate Robertson, John Schaefer, Shannon Stewart, David and Alexander Sharp, Scott Slaymaker, Durante Spencer, Thomas Stewart, Bill Thompson, Sarah Treyway, TJ Walker, and Jeffrey Watts. Join me in 2 weeks where I'd like to tell you the story.